Check the description for the following discount codes. It looks like a lot of people have got steering wheels for Christmas. I've had so many comments across all of my videos, mostly cockpit ones, asking what cockpit they should get to go with their new, CSL-DD or the PlayStation equivalent, or their new Thrustmaster TX or T300 or their Logitech G923. Loads and loads of comments asking me what cockpit they should get. And whilst it's the question's easy to answer, the answer is buy the best you can afford. And the reason I say that is because your cockpit is the base of your racing experience. That's literally what you sit in, what you bolt everything to, your steering wheel, your pedal, your shifters, your monitors, whatever other accessories, transducers, the lot. That's what you bolt everything to. If you cheap out on a cockpit and buy something, I don't know, like Playseat Evo, something like that, it's quite wobbly, hasn't got much adjustment, can't really bolt things to it, there's no real accessories in the way of monitor mounts and stuff. You've got that leg in the middle that's in the way of your legs. If you cheap out and buy something like that, you're gonna end up upgrading later on down the line. And maybe if you're just not sure, whether this is going to be a hobby for you or not, you want to buy something cheap to get you started. I do totally understand that. But at the same time, you don't want to hinder your experience by going too cheap. Now, you can spend anything from £100 on a wheel stand, or in fact, even perhaps 50 quid if you look on eBay. There's some like Chinese branded wheel stands that are copies of other ones that are super cheap. I've never tried one, but they're there. Or you could spend like £2,000 on a sim racing rig. So obviously this is very much budget dependent. And that's why I say buy the best you can afford. And by that, I'm not encouraging you to say, right, I can afford or justify £1,000 or buy £1,000 one. I mean, within reason, If you know you're going to be into sim racing for a long, you think, yeah, I've been waiting to do this for ages and now I've got the money, then buy something decent. If you're just dipping your toe in the water and you're trying it out, buy something that you can afford, but it isn't crap, basically. We'll take a quick look at the GT Amiga website for two reasons. One, they do everything from a cheap wheel stand, like £100, up to their aluminium profile GT Amiga Prime cockpit and everything in between. So it makes it easy for me just to sort of talk us through the different cockpits. Now, this isn't the only brand you can buy. Next Level Racing also do from wheel stands up to aluminium profile cockpits as well. They tend to be a touch more money, but there is other brands to consider. There's SimLabs. There's lots of other brands to consider. GT Amiga is just the one I have a discount code for, so that will be in the description should anyone want to buy anything. But I'm not saying buy GT Amiga. Look at all the other brands that are out there within your price point. Look at reviews, mine and other people's, and make your own choice. This is just an easy way for me to talk you through the process of choosing what you might want. So let's get some screen capture on the go. Yeah, okay, we're good. And let's look, first we'll very quickly look at wheel stands. Again, this is aimed at people who have literally just got their first wheel and pedals and are looking for something, to bolt it to, really. Wheel stands are okay if your budget is very limited. Here's £100, you've got a shifter mount, it adjusts up and down, in and out, the pedal tray, the angle adjusts. It's a reasonable little wheel stand for the money you pay. But wheel stands are inherently a bit wobbly. And obviously there's no seat attached to it, although you can add a rear attachment with a GT Amiga seat later on down the line should you want to. So that's not a bad option, actually. And if we look at their Apex wheel stand, this is another 20 quid. This is a much sturdier wheel stand than their Classic, by the way. So if you can stretch the other 20 quid, I would. This can also have the rear seat attachment bought at a later date, which means you can buy a wheel stand, give it a go, see what you think, and if you're like, yeah, I really like this sort of thing, sim racing, buy the back half and a seat, and you'll have what is effectively a entry-level full-size cockpit, very similar to their Art cockpit, which is what we see here. Now this is actually a little closer in appearance to their wheel stand Classic, but it's more rigid because it has these upright sections here that stop it wobbling around quite so much. And this, of course, is a full-size cockpit with a choice of different seats. I often see people in the comments when I've reviewed GT Amiga cockpits saying, "Oh, the price has gone up by so and so, so and so," and what they're doing is they're coming in here and they're not noticing that a seat is automatically clicked and added to the package. When I review a cockpit, I'm reviewing the cockpit on its own because I obviously have seats here. I don't review a seat and a cockpit. It's two different things. So when I say the price of a cockpit in my reviews, it's the price of the cockpit. So in this case, $199.95 for the cockpit on its own without a seat. Obviously, you would want a seat, so then the price goes up. But this GT Amiga R is probably the best value for money entry-level full cockpit. You can adjust pedal angle, you can adjust the wheel tray up and down, in and out, and the angle of that. The seat can go back, forward, up, down, and tilt as well. There's all the adjustment you need. It's a little wobbly. If you've seen some of my videos, you'll see that I put a cross brace across the middle here, which basically eliminated that flex, and that's definitely something I would do. And I also put another brace down the side here, as well, that way it was, in fact, down there, and that eliminated the up and down flex. Very cheap, cost me about 15 quid to do, and that turned what was an entry-level cockpit with a bit of flex into an entry-level cockpit that was very sturdy. So this is definitely a recommend for people who haven't got a huge budget but that can afford more than a wheel stand and who want a full-size cockpit. Their next one up is the Titan. Now this, I have a soft spot for this cockpit because I like the sort of tubular design of it. But what I don't like is it lacks adjustability in a big way. You can only sort of tilt where your steering wheel attaches here. You can tilt it up and down, you can slide it in and out a little bit. These sort of tubular bars here, they're reinforced with these and they are fixed in position. They do not move. The pedal tray also I'm not a big fan of. It puts the pedals quite high, almost similar to a Formula position, but not quite because the seat's still reasonably high. I don't actually use the pedal tray attachment. I just bolt my pedals to the plate at the bottom, which is rock solid. In fact, it's probably more solid than what the actual pedal tray is. But I think, this will happily take a direct drive wheel without any issues at all. Obviously, the seat and that moves backwards and forwards and up and down, and the shifter mounts as well. This on its own is £100 over what the Arc cockpit is, so from 199 to 299. It is definitely much more solid, and if this is your sort of budget and you like the tubular design, it's a good cockpit to get. The footprint is also relatively small. It doesn't take up that much space in your room. And then of course their very top one, which is their Prime cockpit, is your generic aluminium profile cockpit that you can get from all sorts of other manufacturers like the SimLabs P1X. They're pretty much all the same, aluminium profile is aluminium profile. You can get thicker, you can get thinner, but essentially it's all very rigid, it's all very customizable, and it's kind of the top of the tree. The pedal tray on this could definitely have been a bit thicker because if you don't fit your pedals taking into account the design of the pedal tray, you can get some flex. I've mentioned this in the comments a few times to people that talk about it. If you fit your pedals to this, bearing in mind its structural integrity, how it's been made, where the strong points are and where the weak points are, you won't have any problems whatsoever. It only takes a little bit of common sense to look. Using washers behind your bolts to make sure you're not just pulling against the slots, in the tray itself. If you've got individual pedals, this is not designed to have individual pedals bolted to. If you buy a set of high-end pedals, like the Huizenvelds perhaps, get the pedal plate that's optional that you bolt your 3 pedals to, and then you bolt the whole assembly down to your pedal tray and your cockpit. That is what those thick pedal plates are designed for, from the likes of HE. It's literally, you buy your pedals, you bolt them to this big thick plate, and then you bolt that down, and you're not going to get any flex at all. But yeah, essentially, aluminium profile cockpits are all very much the same and all perform very similarly. They even share identical dimensions, some of these cockpits. So it's only things like the pedal tray, really, that varies from one to another. They mostly have the same sort of wheel deck options as well. You've got your flat one here, and then they do ones that come in from the side, and then ones where you with a hole in the front that you can bolt your direct drive wheel into. They're all copies of one another. But this is the top of the tree stuff. So this comes in at, I mean, it's out of stock at the minute. This comes in at $569.95 without a seat. It's probably the cheapest aluminium profile cockpit of this dimensions on the market. But again, you don't have to buy GT Amiga. I'm just using this site because I'm familiar with it and it's easy to talk through the options because I have experience with all of them. But yeah, look at Next Level Racing, look at Sim Labs, look at Sim Hound if you want a smaller aluminium profile cockpit that's about half the price, about £300 I think for a Sim Hound one. They literally use smaller aluminium profile, sort of 50% smaller. So you don't get the same rigidity, but you do get a lot of the customization. So there's all sorts of brands to look at when it comes to choosing what cockpit or wheel stand you want for your first ever purchase. But I'm going to go right back to what I said at the beginning, because we've finished looking at these now, and that is buy the best you can afford. Whether that be dipping your toe in the water budget, or whether that be I'm going to love sim racing, I know I am, and I've got a huge budget. Whatever it is, buy the best you can afford, because that is what is going to be your sim racing base. That's what you're going to bolt everything else to as you upgrade from perhaps a Logitech to a Thrustmaster to a Fanatic to a Simucube. Who knows what you might get over time. The same goes for pedals and shifters. They've all got to be bolted to a cockpit. So my advice, buy the best you can afford within the constraints of your own personal circumstances, your budget, your level of commitment, and even the space you have in your home to be able to accommodate either a wheel stand or a cockpit. But the wheel stands like these ones from GT Amiga are also a great option, like I mentioned, for dipping your toe in the water. You can grab a wheel stand, use a desk chair, and then if you decide you like it and you've got space, you can buy the back half of the cockpit as well, and then you'll have what's like a sort of entry to mid-level cockpit for quite reasonable money too. So yeah, hopefully that answers all you new sim racers questions that I've been getting lots of in the comments, and I hope you're all enjoying your Christmas presents, whether it's a Logitech, whether it's a Fanatic, whether it's a Thrustmaster, whatever it might be. It's a great hobby to get into. The rabbit hole is large and vast, very, very deep, and you may never stop. Our cockpits, our sim rigs, they just keep evolving. But enjoy what you've got for now, and this is my advice on what would be a good way to choose your very first wheel stand or cockpit. As always, take it easy.